Where are you, Jeff? We know you. There you are. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I'd also like to say happy birthday to Arizona, because on Friday we are celebrating our 108th birthday in the state of Arizona. So it's a big deal for our city, right?
Very good. Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. Thanks for your patience. And we'll move on with an invocation by Pastor Andrew Gutierrez with Canyon Bible Church, and then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, we are thankful for this wonderful state and this wonderful city that you've given us. I think we all feel a sense of privilege being here. Lord, we're thankful for our elected officials. We're thankful for the ability to choose them. We're thankful for their service to us, and the members of the city, citizens. Father, we pray that you would be honored, that you would give wisdom to our leaders. We know that you give wisdom when we ask. So I pray that you would give them that today, give them hearts of service and love for the city and love for the people. And ultimately that what's right would be decided upon, and that what's best for our city would be what moves us forward. And Father, we thank you and ask all this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. So please call roll.
Mayor Mangarelli,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr,
Here.
Councilman Blair,
Yes.
Councilman Good,
Here.
Councilmember Rusing,
Here.
Councilwoman Scholl,
Here.
and Councilman Sischka.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you for that. Let's go to proclamations.
100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters.
Representatives from the league, please join me. So we are celebrating birthdays this week and this year. So I was just recently at the Western Heritage Center, and we have a wonderful display about suffrage. And it was an amazing task that they had. But 100 years ago, the 19th Amendment was passed in August 1920. Congratulations. And what that did for our country was amazing, because of all that we as women in this audience, women across our nation have contributed to our country. So God bless everyone, that we all have the right to vote. So I would like to read the proclamation for the League of Women, and because it is their 100th anniversary. 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters of the United States of America. Whereas the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 as a mighty political experiment by the foremothers of the suffragist movement at the National American Women's Suffrage Association, and whereas their goal was to help 20 million women who were granted the right to vote by the 19th Amendment understand and carry out their responsibility as voters. Whereas with the success of this effort and the tireless efforts over the last 100 years to strengthen and to uphold its mission to empower voters and define democracy, the League has become a trusted, nonpartisan grassroots organization. Whereas the League has sponsored legislation and fought in the courts to protect and strengthen voting rights and access for free and fair elections, civil rights, children, community health, and education. Whereas the League has consistently been noted for its nonpartisan election information, including sponsorship of candidate forums, information on state and local ballot issues, as well as its commitment to register, educate, and mobilize voters. Whereas the League champions government systems that are open, transparent, inclusive, and equitable. Whereas the League believes that active engagement in active and engaged citizens, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, or political affiliation, are the hallmark of democracy. Now, therefore, Greg Mangarelli, the mayor of the city of Prescott, does hereby honor and congratulate the League of Women Voters on its 100th anniversary and commend the League for its significant contributions to empowering voters and making democracy. He proclaims today, February the 14th, as League of Women's Voters Day. Thank you. So you're a smart man because you're following the League of
That's
Women.
right.
There you are. Thank you.
100 years ago, the League was formed precisely to help women be prepared to vote, to be educated and informed about what they were voting for. We can still use a lot more of that. But at any rate, men were added to the League of Women Voters over 45 years ago. So you're all welcome. We're not discriminating anymore. Really, our whole purpose is to help voters become more educated, more involved, understand what the issues are, and there's a lot of work that goes into our mission, and we appreciate it when people come to our forums, when people come to our programs and learn about the issues that are important to all of us as a community. So with that, I thank all of you, and I'll give you our motto now is empowering voters, defending democracy, and that's what we're all about. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to say something? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, and congratulations. So I'll give that to you, Bonnie. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Would any member like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Yes, I would, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull item D for discussion.
Item D, okay. Anyone else? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 7A through 7C.
Second. We have a motion and second. Please vote.
Wait, mine's, hold on. Somebody did that. Oops.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's go ahead and look at item 7D. Councilmember Rusi.
Yes, I'm just concerned about the awarding of the city contract to James Holt, LLC. There's no doubt in my mind that Mr. Holt is a very capable person for this contract, but I'm concerned about a non-competition clause and a public bidding process because I understand he is also employed with Matrix Engineering, and I would just like to maybe have our legal counsel clear that up for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to defer to Ms. Grazer, who I know has done considerable background research on this. But as a general proposition, professional services, of course, in the city of Prescott are exempt from competitive bidding. So we can find the person who is a professional that we would want to hire without going out to RFP. As you know, we have boilerplate contracts at the city of Prescott. One is for a professional services agreement that provide protections to the city in the form of indemnification and requiring a certain amount of insurance to protect the city's interests. Regarding the history of Matrix, I'm going to let Leslie kind of explain what the history there is and what Mr. Holt's current position there is, if anything. And she'll give us some background information.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Leslie Grazer, Water Resource Admin. If he hasn't already answered your questions, I brought just a quick little summary of what's happening on this contract. So we're looking at the two arrows that are green. We do have multiple contracts, and I think that's why it gets a little confusing. We have a heavy scientific contract with Matrix, and then we followed up with a consultant stance to help us with getting through jobs that we weren't fully staffed to handle in the time frame that we needed to handle them. So we had an on-call contract with them through Matrix. And at that time, Mr. Holt was employed with them. He was their Northern Arizona marketing person. But if you know Jim Holt, he has quite a resume. And so he's been the AMA director. He's worked at the city on the Big Chino Water Ranch. So that contract wrapped up in September of 2019. We pursued a follow-up contract that was approved by council, but the contract wasn't executed in its entirety. Neither party signed because we knew that there was some reorganization that was going to happen within Matrix. So that's why we followed up today with this contract, because we are seeking his specialized knowledge to help us manage the different aspects that we need to manage beyond the scientific with the list is here. Comprehensive Agreement number 1, our assured water supply, Chino Valley Irrigation District IGA. That one has a lot of moving parts. And then we added on, and that's why it's in green, the Big Chino Ranch land management. The city invested in a management plan in 2012, and there's some items on that we'd like to execute.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much, Leslie.
Entertain a motion on that?
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda item D.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's move on to consent ordinance.
Item A, adoption of ordinance number 2020-1709, amending Title 4, Chapter 4-4 related to peddlers and solicitors. An ordinance of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, amending Title 4, Chapter 4, peddlers and solicitors, Sections 4-4-4, 4-4-6, 4-4-7, 4-4-11, and 4-4-13, and adding severance and penalty provisions. Item B, adoption of ordinance number 2020-1707, authorizing the sale of city real property and granting a temporary construction easement to the state of Arizona, and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said sale and granting of easement. And item C, adoption of ordinance number 2020-1708, authorizing the abandonment of the easement recorded in Book 503, pages 274 through 276, in the office of the Yavapai County Recorder, and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said abandonment of said easement.
All right, thank you for that. We'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt consent ordinance items 8A through 8C.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? If not, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, thank you for that. Let's move on to liquor license agenda 9A1.
Public hearing and consideration for a new Series 14 club liquor license application from Edward Lee Kellerman, applicant for the Fippen Museum, location 4701 Highway 89 North. The application fee has been paid. The sign has been posted for the required 20 days. Staff has reviewed the application and determined that it is in compliance, and no public comments have been received, and the applicant is present.
All right, Ed, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Basically, the FIPA Museum is growing. If you haven't seen what's going on out at the museum, I suggest you do come out and visit us. I have been at the FIPA Museum for almost 12 years now, but the last year as executive director. So there's a lot on our plate every year, but we're always planning new things. And so with the current situation we have now is we apply for individual liquor licenses. We can only apply for a certain number. With the number of events we have, including our fall gathering barbecue, the opening receptions, our meet and greet, artist dinner, those kinds of things, we have more events than can be suited with the licenses we can get. So we looked at the requirements for a club liquor license and met those, and so here we are.
Well, thanks for that, Ed, and appreciate what you're doing out at Fippen, and congratulations on being the director there for,
Very much.
It's gone fast, already a year.
It is a whirlwind, a definite whirlwind.
You do some great events out there, so we appreciate what you're doing, and hope this helps you out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Proud to do this, Ed. I'm so proud of what's going on at the Fippen. It's
you.
absolutely amazing.
Thank you very much.
So I recommend move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, I move to approve recommendation for liquor license application number 90431 for a new Series 14 club liquor license for the Fippen Museum located 4701 Highway 89 North.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Excellent.
Ed.
Thank you so much to the city of Prescott for all your support. Thank you so much, all of
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, let's move on to item 10A, please.
Adoption of Resolution Number 2020-1734, supporting the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States and declaring the City of Prescott a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Okay, very good. Before we jump into this, I want to remind everyone that we value civility and decorum and respecting one another, and I thank you in advance for adhering to that. We appreciate you being here and supporting your view on this item or any items at the city. We have several comment cards. We're going to try to get through all of those today. If you want to comment, you need to fill out a card and get it up to the clerk. I think we have well over 30.
I have 37 right now.
37. So we're going to try to get through all those today. We did ask, as you maybe saw in the newspaper, that we do a 2-minute maximum on your comments. And I would add to that if you can be more brief, if someone ahead of you maybe is made your point, or you're going to say something similar, maybe you might consider cutting down the time that you might use so that we can get through as many of these as we can. We're really looking for new points of view every time we get a speaker up here and not wanting to hear necessarily just the same thing over and over again, if that would make sense. So, again, thanks for being here, and thanks for the respect you have for each other and your decorum here today. So let's go ahead, if the clerk could read the resolution, please.
Resolution Number 2020-1734. A resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, supporting the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 2, Section 26 of the Constitution of the State of Arizona, and declaring the City of Prescott a Second Amendment sanctuary city, and authorizing the Mayor and staff to take any and all steps necessary to accomplish the above. Whereas the Prescott City Charter and Title IX of the Arizona Revised Statutes provides the powers both express and implied for the city to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of its residents, including but not limited to the plenary powers to enact and make all proper and necessary ordinances, resolutions, and orders to carry out and give effect to the express, as well as the implied powers granted in this charter to the end that a complete, harmonious, and effective municipal government may be initiated, installed, operated, and maintained in the city, and thereby protect and safeguard the rights, interests, safeties, morality, health, and welfare of the city and its inhabitants. See Prescott City Charter Article 13, Section 8, and setting municipal policy. See Prescott City Charter Article 1, Section 2. And whereas the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, adopted in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, protects the fundamental and individual rights of the people to keep and bear arms. And whereas the Supreme Court of the United States in the District of Columbia v. Heller 554 U.S. 570 2008 affirmed an individual's rights to possess firearms unconnected with service in a militia for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense within a home. And whereas the Supreme Court of the United States in McDonald v. Chicago 561 U.S. 742 2010 affirmed the right of an individual to keep and bear arms as protected under the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution is incorporated in the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment and therefore applicable against the several states of the United States. And whereas the Supreme Court of the United States in United States v. Miller 307 U.S. 174 1939 opined that firearms that are part of ordinary military equipment or whose use could combine to the common defense are protected by the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. And whereas Article 2, Section 26 of the Constitution of the State of Arizona provided that the right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired, but nothing in this section shall be construed as authorizing individuals or corporations to organize, maintain, or employ an armed body of men. And whereas upon assuming office, the members of the Prescott City Council took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of Arizona, and today do hereby reaffirm our commitment to the United States Constitution and the Constitution and laws of the State of Arizona. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Prescott as follows, Section 1, that the City of Prescott, by authority granted by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of Arizona and the people of Prescott, Arizona, do hereby commit to stand and defend their rights and liberties as guaranteed by the United States Constitution and the Constitution and laws of the State of Arizona. Section 2, that the City of Prescott affirms its support of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and declares the City of Prescott a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Section 3, that the City of Prescott will not authorize or appropriate government funds, resources, employees, agencies, contractors, buildings, detention centers, or officers for the purpose of enforcing laws that after complete judicial review are held to unconstitutionally infringe on the people's rights to keep and bear arms.
Thank you. Very good. So I want to do a couple things before we get to public comment. Councilmember Rusine and Councilman Good brought this to the council, and I wanted to make sure that Councilman Good had an opportunity to speak to this resolution first, and then I'd like to hear from legal, and then at that point, we'll allow the council to speak if they would like to at that point. So, Councilman Good.
Thank you, Mayor. The intent of this resolution is to send a clear message to our Arizona State Legislature and elected leadership that the City of Prescott's government will faithfully perform their sworn duties, and it's important that the members of this council reaffirm their oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, which both specifically protect its citizens' right to bear arms in self-defense of their lives and liberty. Here in Arizona and elsewhere, we are seeing continuing pressure to enact laws restricting ownership of legally acquired firearms. Such laws would violate the specific protection of those laws, of those rights guaranteed by the Second Amendment. I've heard and considered 5 primary issues or variations in opposition to this resolution. Number 1, this is only a resolution and not an ordinance, and it has no force of law. Granted, but its intent and its message is loud and clear. 2, this resolution isn't even necessary since our rights are already protected. There are at least 3 bills filed in the current Arizona legislative session that would allow confiscation of legally possessed firearms likely infringing Second Amendment protections. And I'll reference House Bill 2321, Senate Bill 1164, and Senate Bill 1626. Similar bills have been introduced in recent past legislative sessions as well. 3, since Yavapai County already approved a very similar resolution last week, approving this resolution in Prescott is redundant. Prescott has its own law enforcement agency, our Great Prescott Police Department, which is enforcement jurisdiction within these city limits. Prescott officers would potentially be put in serious danger being required to enforce such seizure laws. It should also be noted that there are now 4 counties in Arizona that have adopted similar resolutions. Mojave in November of last year, La Paz on February 3rd, Apache County on February 4th, and of course our own Yavapai County on the 5th, in addition to another city, Bullhead City, in January. Number 4, it's not up to Prescott city officials to determine what laws are constitutional or unconstitutional. That's up to the state and federal courts. I acknowledge this concern and included a reference in the last section 3 of the resolution to include, quote, after complete judicial review, unquote. Excuse me. Lastly, there have been references to possible economic damage from reduced tourism and or state budget funding consequences if this resolution is passed. Public policy should not be held hostage to unfounded and speculative possibilities. Besides, our constitutional rights are not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilman Good, legal comments in regard to this resolution?
Thanks, Mayor, Council, members of the public. I have a strange feeling that we have a full house because of this particular item. When a city attorney's office takes a look at proposed resolutions, it's looking for various things. One of them is, what is the practical real-world effect on the local law enforcement? One of the current concerns that always gets raised is, can this potentially have a chilling effect on local law enforcement? Stated another way, will a resolution from this body somehow send out a message to our police officers that they may want to take a step back on laws that are already on the books? A second thing we like to look to is there a potential possibility of a loss of federal and or state funding in a resolution? And while there's an argument to be made that a resolution is nothing more than a statement of support, I do have a concern about a Senate bill that was passed a few years ago, commonly called Senate Bill 1487, which was codified in Title 41 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. And that says, at the request of one or more members of the legislature, it can be any member of the legislature, the Attorney General shall investigate any ordinance, regulation, order, and here's some key language, or other official action adopted or taken by the governing body of a county, city, or town that the member alleges violates state law or the Constitution of Arizona. Interestingly, as you've all been made aware, there is some potential state legislation being introduced by a representative in Lake Havasu City. It's House Bill 2093. That says, and it's fairly short, so I'll just read it. Pursuant to the sovereign authority of this state in Article 2, Section 3, Constitution of Arizona, 1, an act, law, treaty, order, rule, or other regulation of the United States government that violates Amendment 2 of the Constitution of the United States is null, void, and unenforceable in this state. Number 2, this state and all political subdivisions of this state are prohibited from using any personnel or financial resources to enforce, administer, or cooperate with any act, law, treaty, order, rule, or regulation of the United States government that violates Amendment 2 to the Constitution. So looking at that, I suddenly have a strange feeling in my stomach, because when Councilman Good presented the resolution with the judicial review section, it kind of made me happy. That is intuitively the way the world works in the United States. We have a legislature that creates laws. We have an executive branch that executes laws. And when there's a conflict as to whether or not a law or statute is constitutional, the courts get involved. One of the issues with the state proposed legislation that's pending is that it really doesn't have that judicial review policy in it. It really looks to the legislature to make a determination as to what may or may not be constitutional or unconstitutional, which kind of gets us to my fear of this Title 41 violation, that any legislator in the state of Arizona, conservative, moderate, liberal, can go to the Attorney General and say, I want you to investigate Prescott's other official action. That is that resolution that we are putting together that talks about the city not taking any action until complete judicial review has been accomplished. The concern there is the argument will be made, I'm afraid, that a legislature will say, and this is presuming that this law passes, a legislator will say that we have a law on the books. Prescott is going to now require judicial review, which is not something that is in the law. Attorney General investigate. What happens with an investigation, whether that's a valid argument or not, is our state shared revenue gets frozen immediately. And that's a major contributing factor to our budget. And it goes through an entire investigation. So that's kind of one of the things we identified in the city attorney's office that you at least have to be cognizant of as maybe a real world effect on doing the resolution. Other things we look at. Or whether or not having, and Councilman Good addressed this in his opening statement, so he certainly has his position on it. Yavapai County's declaration and the proposed state legislation, if it passes, is that enough to kind of pull in Prescott by itself? Because we are a city within Yavapai County, and we are a political subdivision of the state of Arizona. So those are things, at least to be cognizant in your thinking when you're making a decision on how you want to proceed with this proposed resolution. So those are just some thoughts that, we had. It's fairly new resolution that we're looking at, so we're just starting to kind of wrap our heads around it. But those are the things I think you should be looking at and considering as you debate this particular issue.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Podracki. Council, anybody like to make a comment before we go to public comment? Okay.
Mayor, I do have a comment. Well, this possibility of House Bill 2093, if it passes, and we don't know that it will, and if it generated a 1487 challenge, wouldn't we still have the ability to rescind this resolution preemptively?
I think that is the legislative fix. You say, or you don't even have to acknowledge that it may somehow violate that particular statute, but the easy fix is you just undo the resolution.
At that time.
At that time. So I in my mind, I wonder, is it worth waiting to see what the state does with something like this so you can make that analysis further?
Need it quiet in the chambers, please. Does that answer your question, Councilman Good?
Yes, it does give
it quiet in the chambers, please.
Mayor, it does give us a potential option if such an act did occur, and if a legislator decided to try to engage a 1487 challenge.
Okay. Anything else from the council at this time? All right, we're going to go to public comment. I want to remind everybody that we have 2 minutes or less. We're trying to get through 30-some different comment cards today. I'm going to cut this off at about 4:30, give or take. We'll see. Again, please, if someone ahead of you has said more or less what you're going to say, we would appreciate it if you might, forfeit your time or at least make your time much shorter as a result, because, hearing the same thing over and over again isn't going to be as helpful as just different perspectives. So I appreciate that. Again, remind everybody of the civility and decorum in this chambers. We need to be respectful of one another. And then, clerk, if you could, as we go through here, because it's kind of hard to move around, can you queue some people up, after, the first one, and then who's on deck, so to speak?
I can, yeah. I can
Okay.
call 3 at a time, and then we can
Okay.
have them.
That'd be great.
Okay. Warren Darrow. John Starr. And Tamara Ferns.
Okay, come on up. And there is a light up here, if you didn't see it already, that kind of helps you with the time.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Warren Darrow, and I actually wasn't planning on addressing the Council and Mayor today.
If you could pull the microphone down, I'm sorry.
Given my condition, if I could read my statement, I just thought it was going to be read. If I could have my card. Thank you. I ask that the City Council refrain from adopting this resolution as it involves a heated, divisive political issue. Just the term sanctuary city alone raises partisan temperatures in many people. And if we grant sanctuary to one provision of the Bill of Rights, why not others? At least one prominent government official has labeled the press the enemy of the people. So should we give sanctuary to the right of free speech and the right of a free press? I respectfully ask that you not needlessly endorse the regrettable environment of hyperpartisanship and conflict that pervades the country. I also think Prescott's desired image as a welcoming, friendly place for tourists and other visitors could be undermined by resolutions endorsing political positions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Starr.
That's me. I want to applaud all of you for your public service, and I appreciate it. You know, I moved to Prescott because it was safe. And I read the definition, at least the one that I found, of a Second Amendment sanctuary. And that includes excusing people from background checks. I own a firearm. I know if they did a background check on me, I'd be clean. And the chances of me doing something to harm someone else is slim, at worst. You know, I got an education here, and I appreciate that. And I wonder about the ludicrousy of passing a redundant, whatever we call it, at the chance of having it needed to be rescinded. I don't want to see another Sandy Hook. Another one of my rights in the Bill of Rights is a right to life. And I don't want to be threatened by people coming. I don't want this area. I love this area. I don't want it to become a magnet for those who should not have firearms. People with records, outstanding records, people who have issues up here that shouldn't be having firearms. And I know a lot of people like that in this community because I'm in the recovery community. And there are a lot of people with trauma, and they're dangerous. I know them personally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamara Ferns. And the next three are Greg Fiends, Barbara Jacobson, and Donna Vermer.
Go
Good
ahead.
afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Tamara Ferns. I'm a retired police officer. My children started shooting responsibly at the age of 7. I can very proudly say that they are both United States Marine expert marksmen, and they both have good conduct medals. Okay. This country exists because of the Second Amendment. We only exist because of the Second Amendment. And this town in particular, given our Western history, we should be ashamed for even having to discuss this issue. We celebrate shootouts in the streets as a public spectacle for our tourists. That's our heritage here. And in my mind, the only reason that any government would want to infringe on our Second Amendment right after 239 years is because they plan to do something that we would shoot them for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Fiends.
Okay, I'll go. Barbara Jacobson. Thank you for at least starting to discuss it a little bit. I was curious to hear what the council had to think. other than Phil, and I didn't hear from Kathy, unfortunately. And I do appreciate hearing from the city attorney. I think those are important things to consider. I agree with a number of the speakers. This is not necessary. This is a partisan, negative kind of rhetoric that we don't need to be even talking about. We are protected. These guys at the door, I totally trust them. And I think that they can do their job. And if need be, we have forces that can do their job. This is not something we need. My dad was in the Battle of the Bulge in Bastogne. He was fodder for the cannons. You know, he had to go out front in the last year of the war and get shot. Luckily, he didn't die due to a pen in his pocket that diverted it from his heart, and I was born a number of years later. When I was building a house, a contractor said, "You got to get a gun." I was a single mom camping out with 2 kids while the house was being built. So I went and looked, filled out the background. I think then it was concealed carry. I don't know what it was 25 years ago. I didn't mind doing that. We all should be doing that. And took my 10-year-old son to go pick it up. He said, "Oh, Mom, I'm home alone. Somebody breaks in, I'll kill him. I'll shoot him." I didn't get the gun, okay? He taught me a lesson that day, and I have learned it, and I think our children can teach us. And I think we need to listen, and I think we need to be aware that the state and the federal government will handle and have handled through our Constitution what needs to be handled. We don't need to do this more, and we don't need to bring up the ire of this kind of discussion here in this place. Thanks.
Thank you.
Donna Vermer. Are you Greg?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm 64 years old. I am a decorated combat veteran, United States Navy, and I am a gun owner. I'm a proud gun owner. My father served 28 years in the United States Marine Corps, served at the Chosin Reservoir, North Korea. Part of the history of our country is fighting for the rights that he went and fought for, that my sons, my wife, who I don't know where she went for, retired Sergeant Tammy Kemry. I married my sergeant, by the way. It was a career move. I truly believe in the Constitution of this country. I have PTSD from my years in the United States Navy, and I've been married 3 times, and never once have I ever thought of hurting anybody. That was never an issue. If you look at the amount of people, the mass shootings in this country, if you add up the amount of mass shootings and the people that were killed or injured, put together the number of people that have been killed from cell phones, 1,640 something in 2016 were killed from cell phones. I think the number that was killed of Sandy Hook, Columbine, Virginia Tech, all of them put together, it doesn't even come close to that number. So it seems like you're taking a number and not putting what's truly important here in this country. I believe in the Second Amendment, and all of you are voted into this position in the City Council, and following the Constitution of the United States, you can be voted out as well. So please follow the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call up the next 3 also, sorry. Jan Barron, Steve Zipperman, and Ross Dowland.
My name is Donna Vernier, and my husband and I moved to Prescott, Arizona 7 years ago to preserve our constitutional right to carry and bear firearms. And I'm also the original founder of the Well-Armed Women, Prescott, and I would like to see the council support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan Barron.
Hello, I'm Jan Barron. I am a political refugee from California. While I was planning my escape from California, I did my research. And Arizona and Prescott, especially this is where I decided to move because of the Constitution constitutional carry law here. And when I came to visit in Prescott, I felt safe. I saw people with their open carry, and it made me feel safe. And I don't think this is redundant. I don't think that this resolution is redundant because our Second Amendment rights are under attack. Every day they are presenting more and more bills, anti-gun bills, confiscation bills in Phoenix, and we need to stand strong. Every city, county, town in Arizona needs to let Phoenix know that we are going to stand strong for our Constitution.
Thank you.
Steve Zipperman.
Mayor Mangarelli and members of the council. My name is Steve Zipperman. I came with my wife to Prescott because we love it here. We love what this city represents. We also teach a Constitution course, and the Founding Fathers knew very well what they were doing when they put the Second Amendment into our Constitution. This is a very important issue, and the people that are running the legislature and the governor have been talking about imposing red flag laws here. Those red flag laws, many times, we don't know what form they'll be in when they finally get passed, but what they do is they have the right to come and take arms away from people without due process. It's very important that this council take its responsibility to represent its citizens effectively. I'm a lawyer in California, just retired. I've studied the Constitution. I understand the way that it works. I've studied what the founders had in mind when they put that into the Constitution, the Second Amendment. And it's extremely important that you consider why all these people are here today. I don't think it's redundant. I think it's important that the city make a statement. The statement is very important to the people in other governments around. Look at what's happening in Virginia right now. The people in Virginia are basically having their rights taken away by a minority that are in charge in a very highly populated area, similar to Maricopa County here. And it's just very important that you stand up and be counted. We're counting on you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The next three cards are Reverend Patty Willis, Myrna Lieberman, and Jeff Tim.
Hello, my name is Ross. I just wanted to bring up an issue of agenda. I'm wondering what should be on your agenda and what shouldn't be on your agenda. And I'm thinking that sanctuary city type stuff shouldn't be on your agenda, that you're going down a slippery slope that doesn't matter whether it's Second Amendment, it could be something like illegals, transgenders. People come here and say, hey, I want you to put this issue on the agenda. And if you are allowing what we're having right now, a Second Amendment discussion, then you're sort of opening up a slippery slope here. And I wasn't happy about the David Stringer censure that you had last year or the year before, because I didn't feel like it was really should be a council business. And I really don't think that this is really council business. Streets, snow clearing, sewer, that kind of thing, the council business, financials, clogging up the the city attorney's office, Michael Lamar's time. There are other areas, other peoples that are handling this issue, and I don't think it's Prescott City Council. Anyway, that's it.
Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
What?
Your
Ross.
name? Ross. Thank you, Ross.
Patty?
Mayor Mangarelli and City Council members, I am Patty Willis, a pastor of a congregation here in Prescott, and it is through the lens of serving that congregation that I have seen in the greater congregation these divides that are so painful. And it is for that reason that I believe that this is not a good idea.
I believe it's not the time for a resolution because I believe that it would escalate, that I feel it escalating the differences among us. I believe it is time for us to talk together about our fears and our hopes. We need to talk about how much our families mean to us and how we want to keep them safe. And we have lots of ideas, and many of those ideas differ from one another. But the way of talking, not of just making resolutions, is the way that we become we the people. And it is my hope that you will not vote for this resolution and that we find ways to talk with one another. I believe that declaring Prescott a Second Amendment sanctuary city will only divide us further and make us less like everyone's hometown. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Myrna Lieberman. On February 5th, the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors declared our county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county, and I'm asking the Prescott City Council to show their support of the Board of Supervisors by supporting this resolution to make Prescott a Second Amendment sanctuary city. These resolutions are preemptive strikes against the advance of any red flag law. I need not tell you what's going on in Virginia. Right here in Arizona, February 10th, Senate Bill 1625, introduced by Senator Rebecca Rios and 11 other Democrat senators, are recommending a total gun confiscation bill in the Arizona State Senate. This bill would ban the possession, transfer, manufacture of assault weapons. Everything from an AR-15 to a Ruger would be included. For those who say we already have a Second Amendment and the federal government's going to protect us, I say the reason for the American Revolution was a fight against a tyrannical government. The Second Amendment was written to protect us from tyrannical governments. As a woman, the gun is the great equalizer. The adage, God made man, God made woman, but Sam Colt made them equal, gives me a chance. Thanks to our Second Amendment freedoms, there are women in Arizona and all over this great nation who are arming themselves for self-defense rather than risk being victims of crime. This is the height of feminism. We women choose how we will protect ourselves and our family. I can't put my trust in the government to protect me. The left's version of feminism is to offer only fear to women and children, not self-defense, nor self-determination. They don't offer any type of protection. All they do is offer call 911 and red flag. Why would women choose waiting for a response from 911 or having a good guy with the gun, which is what happened in Texas? If you have any doubt, ask Rose Sperry, whose daughter was killed at the McDonald's San Ysidro, California massacre in 1984. It took the police 70 minutes to get there because they were stuck in traffic. She will always wonder till this day, if there was a good guy with a gun, would her daughter be alive today? As elected officials, I ask you to vote yes.
Thank you.
The next three cards are from Robert, forgive me for mispronouncing this, Shimizi. Thank you. Phil Whitehead and Glenn Martin. And Mr. Trum, go ahead, sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me here today. Today I represent Congressman Gosar. He sends his regrets that he couldn't be here, but he did send a letter for me to read for you. And I'll read that letter now. Dear councilmen and women, I write today in strong support of resolution number 2020-1734, which would make the city of Prescott a Second Amendment sanctuary city. The Second Amendment is a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution, and your local initiative to protect this right in the face of attempted government overreach is an example of the Constitution working as the founders intended. The right to own a gun is the right to defense of self, property, and liberty. It is what ensures that someone can defend themselves from an attacker or from a government trying to abolish personal liberties. In recent years, our country has gone through the unfortunate epidemic of mass shootings, and the Democrats wrongly blame this issue on legal guns. This tragic trend is not due to the presence of guns, but a breakdown in our societal norms and values. In fact, the presence of legal guns in mass shooting situations have prevented an attacker from causing harm. Overreaction to these incidents have led to the consideration of gun restrictions at the state and federal level, including red flag laws. These initiatives, however, are vague in meaning and could allow the government to expand its power to take all guns rather than just from the people they deem a threat. In fact, a recent Democrat contending for the presidential nomination proudly stated in a national debate that, hell yes, he would take your gun. Even more recently, a Democrat takeover of the executive and legislative branches in states such as Virginia have led to red flag proposals. From this heightened polarized rhetoric, it is clear that vague wording in an anti-gun legislation, including red flag laws, could be broadly interpreted to take weapons outside those deemed as a threat. The government has used vague legislation and broad rulemaking and enforcement to expand its power in virtually every modern policy field. Why would it not use the same tactic to take our guns? The Constitution forbids this very practice and empowers the people to defend their rights, and declaring your city as Second Amendment sanctuary city would protect yourself from these potential government power grabs. Some in opposition to Prescott's measure argue that Yavapai County already adopted sanctuary county status, and therefore the Prescott movement is redundant. To this, I would answer that security of rights cannot be overstated, and joining to the larger cause affords Prescott protections outside of its city borders. This doubling down of protection is crucial, as vocal opponents to this local measure have called for people outside Prescott to come and speak against the resolution. Again, the left shows it is willing to cross into our communities to fight our basic constitutional rights, which proves that Prescott joining Yavapai County and the larger Second Amendment sanctuary city movement is helping in defending your rights. I have and always will fight to protect our Second Amendment rights in Congress. While I continue this push at the federal level, our Constitution endows our state and local governments with powers of their own. State governments are attempting to further the anti-gun campaign, and it is up to the law-abiding citizens at the state and county level to further ensure their rights. Democratic cities are using the sanctuary city concept to violate immigration law, while you are using the campaign to protect your constitutionally given rights. I commend your civic involvement and concern, and strongly urge you to pass this resolution. Signed, Congressman Paul Gosar.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Bob Shimizu. Steve, Phil, Billy, good to see you. I'm an American citizen today because my Japanese dad served in an intelligence battalion in World War II, translating Japanese. I've read my history and philosophy, starting with Plato's Republic. If you read the Constitution, there's a straight line from the Republic to our Constitution. I'm a concealed carry owner, permit holder in 4 states, which makes me good in about 34 of them. And I read every bill, every piece of paper you would trade with, the 20, the 5, the 10, every one of those guys, I read their biographies. Now, if I hypothetically said, you may not speak your mind, or I'll hurt you, and you said, no, don't do that. No, I'm going to do it. I might even kill you. What would you say? Well, eventually, someone would say, I'll call the police. Good for you. You believe in deadly force as well. You just want some poor guy with a badge and a gun to do it for you. You don't have the guts. You're doing force by proxy. Secondly, and finally, there's a lot of people in the world, military and elected officials, who swear an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Would you please stand if you'd made that swore? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil?
Mr. Mayor, council, guests, I'm not a resident of the city of Prescott, but I've been a resident of Yavapai County for just over 30 years now. And I've heard mention of redundancy. I've heard mention of we have a police force that is able to take care of us, so why should we have the necessity to take care of ourselves? I've also heard that there are concerns about economic damage to be done to a community if it portrays itself to be a supporter of the Second Amendment. First point that I'd like to take on is the matter of redundancy. You've got a concrete foundation under this building, right? Okay. There's more than one piece of rebar through that concrete. Now, putting one in there wouldn't do the job. Put 2, 3, are we talking about redundancy? Or are we talking about strengthening that foundation to actually do its job? That's my opinion on whether or not this is redundant. The second point I'd like to make is in response to the comment that we as a society can talk our way through this. Well, as a 34-year retired law enforcement officer, a veteran of the United States Army Military Police, and a grandfather now to 5 grandchildren, I can tell you that standing in a parking lot, holding hands, and singing Kumbaya is not going to make the problem go away. As the saying goes, I carry a firearm because when seconds count, the cops are minutes away. And I'll close with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next 3 cards are Randy Hayes, Russ Pilcher, and Maria Lenown. And Glenn Martin.
Thank you. My name's Glenn Martin Prescott, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for listening to our stories. First of all, Mayor, I'd like to talk about the Chiefs, but I only have 2 minutes, so we're going to cut that out.
Chiefs.
I want to go right to the meat of the subject, red flag laws. Why are we against red flag laws? Quite honestly, are against our constitutional rights. They have no due process. Anybody can come up and say you're a danger to society. And the one thing we have in common with the left, we don't want people who are dangerous to themselves or to others to have firearms. But we don't want to give up our constitutional rights to do so. And due process is one of those rights. Along with the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, the Fifth Amendment of being able to be in front of your accuser, and of course the 14th Amendment as well as the 6th. I want to close real quick because, I talked with Phil the other day, and, I want to just say thank you, Phil. You're a combat veteran, and you stand up for what's right, and you're standing up for the Constitution. Many of us cannot even fathom the sacrifices that Phil Good gave to this country and serving his country and the Constitution. So I'm asking you at this time, we all raised our hand. I know we all stood up just a minute ago. And we swore an oath to uphold and defend that Constitution. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the rubber hits the road. We don't have a fraction of what Phil Good gave to our country, but we have a right now that we can stand up and say, yes, we do defend our Constitution, and we take that oath sacred. And by that, I hope you all pass that ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Randy?
Well, good afternoon there, Commissioners. I'm Randy Hayes. I wanted to talk about what I've got here in front of me, but I'm wondering, I want to ask this question to all of you. Do you see what this is doing by having this kind of a resolution, this kind of a proposition? I kind of agree with what Matt Podracki was saying, the city attorney was saying about this, but there's a lot of animosity and desperation, it seems, designed into this. And look what it's doing to us. I almost got into an argument and a fight with this guy sitting next to me right over here. Because we have this problem with not understanding that we already have the Second Amendment. It's guaranteed by the Constitution. And I'll propose the same question I did before. At the last meeting over last week, we have 300 million guns in this country. Is the government really going to come to your doorstep and take all of our guns from us? That's pretty hard to do, don't you think? Yes, it is. It's very hard to do. I want to talk about something else, though. It's the liability. Being how the representative from GOSAR took about 5 minutes to give us his presentation, I don't want to be cut off. Okay? Mayor? It's about liability issues. I think the attorney over here may have something to say about that. I hope you have considered how this
can impact the community if any of the gun violence decides, any gun violence results in a lawsuit. Have you really consulted with your attorney about this kind of thing? Realizing how lawsuit happy we are in this country, do you think that the family members or survivors of gunshot victims would be satisfied with simply suing the city or county? How about suing any one of you board members for wrongful death? If anybody of my family members gets shot or hurt with a gun in this city or county, I'm going to be looking to sue people for this. And you have a resolution on board for this. That's going to make you look more viable, I would think. This could become very costly. I know how a lot of you really think about the costs involved in all this. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, fellow citizens. By way of background, my name is Russ Pilcher, a Prescott resident. And by way of background, I'm a gun owner, a Remington 700 rifle, a Winchester Model 12 shotgun, a Smith & Wesson 38 Special, and others. I'm a retired United States Marine with a military occupational specialty of field artillery officer. I've commanded artillery units with 155 millimeter and 8-inch howitzers. All were capable of firing nuclear projectiles. Also, I've retired from Lockheed Martin, where we designed and built the F-16 and the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter aircraft. In summary, I'm not anti-gun, nor more generally anti-arms. I am, however, intolerant of incompetent people having easy access, unrestricted access to certain classes of weapons. This includes children and those convicted of domestic or other forms of violence. If you pass this Second Amendment Sanctuary City resolution, thereby opting to ignore laws that are deemed to unconstitutionally infringe upon the people's right to keep and bear arms, then I will assume you're also giving me permission to ignore the city's long-standing policy of prohibiting weapons in the city buildings, since this clearly infringes upon my right to keep and bear arms. On the upside, if you pass this resolution, it's possible each of those who vote for it will be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. However, those who vote against it will no doubt be vulnerable to vitriolic early morning presidential tweets. Finally, I'd like to introduce my wife of 47 years. Carol?
She left you.
Never mind. She warned me, but it was a waste of time to come here. So, you know, that was pretty much going to conclude my comments. But we've been talking about this for some time, and I think it's time to read the Second Amendment. We haven't even read the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks for your token 2 minutes. Now do whatever it is you're planning on doing.
Thank you.
Okay, the next 3 speaker cards I have are for Regina Pecoraro, John I'm so sorry, John Stanskowitz, and Ken Fritz. And I assume you're Maria.
I am.
Okay.
I'm Maria Lynham, and I'm a 20-year resident of Prescott. My husband was a Vietnam War vet, and my youngest son lost his life as a result of injuries that he suffered in Desert Storm. I don't think this has anything to do with whether you've been and have had service to your country or not. I'm opposed to your resolution, Mr. Good, and already you gentlemen are talking about potentially rescinding it. That makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. I have written to you twice, and I've received one comment from the mayor and the city council. I have encouraged you to join the Tucson mayor, Regina Romero, and join other mayors and city councils across the nation who belong to Mayors Against Illegal Guns, MAIG, a bipartisan coalition fighting to end gun violence nationwide. This is a program of Every Town for Gun Safety. Romero has also announced a new mayor's task force on gun safety and violence prevention, aimed at identifying solutions to gun violence at the local level. This is what I encourage you to do. Be proactive, not reactive. Bring us together. Don't divide us. This is just, it breaks my heart to see us divided like this. This is my 4th time to speak to community officials about this resolution. And I sit in line and I talk to other people. And we all have the same common goal, and that is to prevent gun violence in our schools, in our parking lots, in our Walmarts, anywhere that's a public place. And bring us together, don't divide us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Regina?
Mayor, council members, my name is Regina Pecoraro. I apologize, I am not a member of Prescott community. However, as Phil Good can attest, my work with the VFW here in Prescott and all of the veterans, as I served as the veteran service officer for all of Northern Arizona for the VFW, I feel that I actually have something to say to you. I hear a lot of comments stating about how we are trying to control gun violence and to protect our people, and how our country is actually not going to do things like that. Have we neglected to think about our officers that have to face, if a red flag law is enacted, the violence that can happen to them and the loss of their lives and what their families must do? Our Yavapai County Sheriff has to come in as well and do all these things in order to basically take away our rights. I don't know if anybody here has read the ATF Form 4473, where it does ask, of course, all of your normal vital statistics, but that if that you are the actual buyer or the transferee of the firearm. I don't think a violent criminal has actually answered any of this. It also asks that the court, if you've been indicted on a felony, they're not going to say yes to this. They're not going to fill out one of these forms. They don't care. And if such laws actually protect me taking away with a red flag law, I don't think that New Jersey, where a wife or a mother and her 2 children were just murdered, granted by a knife, but as easily could be a gun by a domestic violence abuser, because she had a piece of paper to protect her.
Thank you.
John Stankiewicz, I'm the co-owner of Nielsen Training and Consulting, a firearms training company, the CEO of the Compass Training Center, our new outdoor shooting range in Chino Valley, Arizona. I am a combat veteran, retired police officer, and the past commander of your VFW post here in Prescott, where I had a very good, with an E, senior vice commander. So my opinion is probably pretty easy to figure out, but you asked for a different perspective, and I'm going to give it to you real fast. I have trained military, law enforcement, and civilians throughout the world, throughout this country, in almost every state. And just a few weeks ago, we had competitors for a competition from all across the United States and all across the world, to include England, Germany, Finland, Sweden, Switzerland. I'm missing a bunch. The message isn't from me, the message is from them, because they did their research before they came here. And they're asking you to remember not just our history, but world history. And it has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. It has to do with 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 as well. It has to do with all of them. And I'll be here with these people that oppose this when their First Amendment rights are squashed. That's what this is about. Remember your history. It starts with the second, it goes on from there. This resolution is important to send a message, whether it be ceremonial or not ceremonial. It is important to send the message. And from the gentleman that competed from Germany that has spent a significant amount of time in the Russian Republic. It really doesn't matter if you get spanked from daddy and don't get your allowance or don't get your money from your state or your federal government when you no longer have a city and you have a gulag. And if that seems extreme, I will go back to what I said earlier. Go back and read your world history. That is the message from them, not from me. Thank you, and I encourage you to pass this.
Ken Fritz is my name. Thank you for hearing me. I am asking you not only to pass this resolution, but to go back at a later date and pass something that actually has the force of law. We're told again and again that we have a Second Amendment in this country. Do we really? What good is it doing the people in California and the people in Virginia? I left California because of the way that our Bill of Rights is being systematically chipped away little by little. Who's doing anything about it? I'm asking you, as our last line of defense, to make a statement that it won't be tolerated here in Arizona. I believe that nobody with good intent needs you to be disarmed. Thank you.
The next three cards I have are from John Schruderer. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing names. Ralph Hess. This one does not have a name on it, so I'll call the next one Larry Jacobs.
Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me speak here today. My name is John Schuderer. I come to you with a slightly different perspective and a concern about if this proposition is passed. I'm a retired mental health and substance abuse counselor. Most importantly, having lost my youngest son to death by suicide in 2001, I'm a survivor of suicide. I've devoted a large portion of my life the last several years advocating for suicide awareness and prevention across Yavapai County in Arizona. I currently volunteer on 2 state-level task forces working toward achieving Governor Ducey's goal to reduce suicides across Arizona. Suicide is a major public health concern, both nationally and locally. Suicide is a reflection of the health of our society and community. I know firearms do not cause suicide, but they are involved in a significant number of suicides. In 2018, there were 84 suicides in Yavapai County. 57 of those suicides involved the use of firearms. That's 68%. The number of suicides involving firearms in Yavapai County is 16.9% above the national average of 51%. 21 of the 84 suicides occurred in Prescott. 12 of those involved the use of firearms. 4 of the 12 were females. While these numbers are just statistics to many of you, never forget that each one of these statistics has a name. My son's name is Noel. They each have family, friends, and a community that have been impacted by their death. Statistically, about 90 to 95% of the people sitting in this room have been impacted directly or indirectly by suicide. I question the need for the proposed resolution that does nothing more than make a statement. We've had that discussion already about something that's already protected. Consideration, let alone passage of this resolution, only serves to pour gasoline on an already volatile topic. Please consider your role as elected officials to work toward community peace and unity instead of fostering further animosity and division. Is the passage of this unnecessary resolution more important than finding ways to reduce the number of suicides, especially those that involve firearms? Should the proposed resolution be approved today, it is my hope that it won't be used to impede or prevent future collaborative efforts between the firearm community and the community at large to find workable, effective solutions to Prescott's increasing number of suicides by firearm. There are viable solutions that respect the Second Amendment rights. I'm only here today to bring awareness to the relationship between firearms and suicide in Prescott and Yavapai County to you, the firearm community, and the citizens of Prescott with my deepest prayers that no one has to experience the life-changing grief that my family and I have endured. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ralph Hess.
Well, good afternoon. The express language of the proposed resolution you are considering merely states specific and somewhat limited expression of your oath of office to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona. And what exactly is a Second Amendment sanctuary city? I asked the same question at the county, and I never did get an answer. In what way does a Second Amendment sanctuary Prescott look different than it does now? Will Prescott become Arizona's Second Amendment sanctuary Christmas city? Does not really have an everybody's hometown ring to it. And what will the city of Prescott do or not do after you declare it to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city? If you're really drawn to being rebellious, why don't you do something that is really actually helpful? Some of it's been touched on by your attorney. Challenge the Arizona State Legislature's repeated passage of legislation that preempts local and citizen governance and punishes cities by withholding shared revenues the state is obligated to distribute to them when you audaciously self-govern inconsistently with the wishes of the state legislature.
Thank you.
The next three cards I have are for Larry Gray, another one without a name, Sharon Zipperman, Mark Smith.
Go ahead, Larry.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. My name is Larry Jacobs. I'm going to bring a different perspective to this issue here. I had the privilege of serving on the Phoenix Police Department for 34 years. During that time, I was involved in officer-involved shootings, and these shootings did involve the criminal element, and the criminal element in one of these particular shootings ended up succumbing to the injuries that he sustained. One of the things that these law enforcement officers, like the ones that are standing here today, have to endure is they have to endure a criminal investigation as a result of that until such time as they're deemed to be, shown that they were responsible in the actions that they took and they were justified in taking that life. One of the concerns I guess I have is there are many people in this community that do take the time to get their ALOSHA certification along with have concealed weapons permit like myself. And we do provide a very valuable service. I know that we have safety teams in our churches and everything else, and we're there. And we're also there for a big reason, and that's to support these officers that we have, whether it's the deputies at YCSO or Prescott officers in the event they have issues, because they can't be everywhere. And the response time at anywhere now could be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And if people are taking the responsibility of assuming that responsibility and putting their self out there to assist and become available in the event that some armed intervention has to occur, then I think we would like to have the support of not only the Second Amendment, but have the support of resolutions from the communities in order to assume that responsibility. Sure, there's some liability, but the Second Amendment gives us much along those lines. But I would encourage you to vote yes on this and let us continue to go out there and be there to help our law enforcement individuals and other individuals in order to be responsible and get all the certifications that are required to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Larry Gray. Okay. Sharon Zipperman. Mark Smith.
So my name is Mark Smith. I'm a resident of Yavapai County near Chino Valley. I'm a certified instructor and blah, blah, blah. I'm a former Marine. I'm here today to thank you for your efforts regarding the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. However, as you've already heard, a resolution carries no force of law. I'd like to quote from Section 3 of the resolution that you've put forward. that the city of Prescott will not authorize or appropriate government funds, resources, employees, agencies, contractors, buildings, detention centers, officers for the purpose of enforcing laws that, after complete judicial review, are held to unconstitutionally infringe on the people's right to keep and bear arms. I would put to the council that much damage can be done prior to complete judicial review, which can take many years. Hundreds or even thousands, even hundreds of thousands of citizens could be jailed or worse by the unconstitutional anti-gun laws before your so-called complete judicial review. The city attorney made a great case for judicial tyranny, of which we have plenty in this country today. Respectfully, no, council, this is not an acceptable resolution. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing. All gun laws are unconstitutional. The only thing that the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution does is state the obvious. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it will be respected as such. Your passage of a meaningful ordinance would provide backup for both citizens and law enforcement if and when they follow their oath of office and refuse to enforce illegal gun control laws. Passage of a meaningful ordinance would also support your oath of office and the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 9th, 10th, and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. Failure to do so may also make you subject to Title 18, U.S. Code 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law. I've attached that on the back of this handout. I've heard so many nutty things today I thought I'd never hear, but I guess if you don't get out too much. Anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you for consideration of this.
Thank you.
The next three are Steve Trioud, Craig Kiggins, and Richard Thompson.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Former Secretary of State Daniel Webster once said that the Constitution was made to guard against the people with dangerous intentions. I left California because it was full of people with dangerous intentions who want to protect me from myself by disarming me, stripping me of my rights, stripping me of my due process, dictating their mandate, forcing compliance with threats of felony conviction, and property confiscation. This was a large part of my decision to move to Arizona. I wanted to, and I deserve to live with the freedoms granted to me by the Constitution. Some people take their rights for granted. It's a sign that they didn't fight for those rights. They didn't march. They didn't get beat. They didn't get fire hosed, and their appreciation for these rights is diminished. Having family members that have fought that fight, I appreciate all of my rights as a U.S. citizen, and I vow to keep them. I'm asking the City Council to stand firm and protect our Constitution against those with so-called good intentions. Thank you very much.
My name is Craig Kiggins. I'm not a resident of Prescott, but I am an American. I have very high regard for our founding fathers and the Constitution that they wrote and the provisions for our safety. They had just come out of a Revolutionary War that was won by a bunch of ragtag citizens. And when they said that we should have the right to keep and bear arms, I think it was in that context. And they said that that right shall not be infringed. In our country, there is an insidious, continuous assault to infringe our rights under the Constitution. A minute ago, somebody else said it, but it's a favorite saying of mine. I really respect the police. I don't know how they can get up in the morning, put on that uniform, be identified as the enemy of a whole lot of folks out there. But they do it. But when seconds count, they are minutes away. There are soft targets all around us. This is not a soft target because they are here protecting us today. But there are many places that will not let me take my weapon. So that means that I am without defense. That's a lot of schools. That's a lot of other public buildings. I just ask you to remember this is not redundant. This is just standing on the wall, affirming our rights, and taking a stand for our Constitution and our rights. And I thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
After Richard, I have Linda Thompson, and that's it.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I too escaped from California, and my wife and I feel we've moved to America. And partly because of just the stance Arizona has taken on our rights. And for all I won't go any further, but for all the reasons stated before, I urge you to vote yes for this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm the wife. And I wasn't planning to speak. I was just going to get up and say, vote for this resolution. But after hearing some of the arguments against it, I have cognitive dissonance. Like why is this going to create violence? Why is nobody understanding or paying any attention to the laws that are just being proposed in Arizona against our Second Amendment rights? It makes no sense to me that people are unaware of that or don't care about it, and to say, we already have a Second Amendment. Yes, we do, but people are trying to weaken it and take away our rights. I'm really frightened at the red flag laws, what that can do to people. Look it up. Those who don't know really need to look into it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that everybody?
That's all of them.
All right. Well, thank you all for participating. Appreciate it. Let's come back to the council and get any comments from the council at this point. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I will tell you I've lost a lot of sleep over this over the last, since I found out that this was actually going to be on our agenda. When I took my oath to protect the Constitution, I meant to protect not only the Constitution, all of the amendments that are amended, the 27 amendments to the Constitution. I also took an oath to always do what I felt was best for Prescott. Now, I have friends on both sides of this. I mean, I want to take the Zipperman's class on Constitution. I've taken the class on Constitution. I just feel that we can reaffirm our commitment to the Constitution in a way that does not make us that we do not have to become a sanctuary city. I really am opposed to the word sanctuary. So, I mean, the first time that when the county started to think about this, I've had some bad feelings about sanctuary with regard to sanctuary cities already that are in our nation. And I don't want Prescott to be a sanctuary city. So I'm wondering if there is a way that we can reaffirm our commitment to the Constitution. I will tell you that I think this fight needs to go to the legislature. I appreciate that Congressman Gosar is protecting our Second Amendment in Washington, D.C. This fight, if you don't want red flag laws, then that needs to happen down at the legislature. Our job here in the city does not involve the red flag laws. So I guess I would like to see us consider reaffirming our commitment as a council to the Second Amendment, and then also consider tabling this until there truly is, if there ever becomes a red flag law. There are no red flag laws in Arizona. And I'm very concerned about SB 1487. I will tell you, we work hard to get those shared revenues and to get revenue into our city. And to think that we're going to become a sanctuary city, risk losing those. But then we're saying, well, we can rescind it. Well, why would we put something, vote for something, and then rescind it? So I would like to make a motion that we find another way to reaffirm our commitment to the Second Amendment.
I have a motion. Second. Okay. Motion and a second. Let's go to Councilmember Roosing.
Thank you, and I want to thank everyone for coming and speaking today. It was very wonderful to see everyone exercising their freedom of speech, their First Amendment rights. I would like to read the Second Amendment again since the other gentleman was interrupted. And it reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." And these are 27 very powerful words. And I would also like to read the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause. "Nor shall any state deprive person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law." And this is why I oppose red flag laws, because I feel that there is no due process involved. Now, that being said, I feel also that today the city of Prescott only had 4 short days of notice from Thursday when the agenda was published to today. And it went directly from e-session to study session. So I am not in favor of voting on the same day as an executive session. So I would like to propose to my fellow council members that we put this on the ballot so the citizens of Prescott can have a say, because I have a feeling that there were a lot of residents here that were speaking their opinion, but they are not actually citizens of Prescott. So in August, the ballots go out, and I think it would be very cost effective, and it would be wonderful if we gave the citizens of Prescott their say and get this on the ballot. Thank you.
Councilwoman Sherwood.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everyone for being here. It's great to hear everyone and hear everyone's opinion. I have something prepared that I would like to read. Adopting this resolution makes a statement that we, as a city, will pick and choose which laws we direct our police department to enforce. This contradicts the oaths of office that we took. Not only did we swear that we would uphold the Constitution of the United States, but we also swore that we would uphold the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona. We are not judges. This council does not perform judicial review. Therefore, we should not be making determinations on which state laws we choose to enforce. Additionally, the language outlined in the proposed resolution is no different than what is currently being enforced. If after complete judicial review, a law is deemed to be unconstitutional, it would no longer be a law and therefore not enforceable. With or without this resolution, the city of Prescott would not ever enforce laws that have been found to be unconstitutional by the courts. This resolution doesn't change anything and is simply a political statement. I don't think the city should be in the business of making political statements on state and federal issues. It's beyond the scope of city business. I am disappointed to be put in a position where some may perceive my position on this resolution to mean that I do not support the Constitution of the United States. I take my oath of office seriously and would never purposefully choose not to defend the rights of Americans that are outlined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In fact, as a direct descendant of George Reed of Delaware, who signed both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, I greatly understand the gravity of protecting our rights as citizens. I personally do not have an issue with people choosing to responsibly exercise their Second Amendment rights. However, I do not feel that declaring Prescott as a Second Amendment sanctuary city is necessary and in the best interests of the city.
Councilman Good.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. When I suggested that there would be an option if the 2093 bill were passed, I just wanted to make it clear that should such a consequence occur, this council does have an option to deal with the consequences without having to necessarily be damaged by this 1487 option. So I'm not suggesting that we pass something so we can rescind it later on. I'm just suggesting that we do have options should something occur, and I don't think it's good public policy to anticipate things that might happen rather than deal with things that are happening. The suggestion that we put it on the ballot, I think also is going to be well after the fact. Even if we could suggest a ballot initiative, we've already heard on another matter that it would probably cost us about $80,000 to add a ballot option to our next election. And we would be certain that the current legislature would already be ended by the time that should happen. So I want to make sure that this current legislature and hopefully future legislatures know that the city of Prescott, the residents herein, expect them not to pass these types of laws, and that's the purpose of me bringing this forward. So I would like to be able to move that we approve this resolution the way it's written. So that's my my statement.
Okay. Councilman Sischka.
Thank you, Mayor. I totally support the Second Amendment, your ability to carry arms, protect yourself. I think the big problem for me with this whole situation is the word sanctuary. I think that sanctuary is totally misunderstood. When I was over at our business, I tried to ask as many people as possible what they thought of this situation. I had one gal come into my office, and I asked her, and she said, well, that's interesting because I'm going over to buy ammo at J&G. But she also said that this was unnecessary and that the word sanctuary really muddied the waters in this situation. So I would be totally willing to revisit this at some point, but I think that sanctuary takes away from the intent, the good intent of what you're trying to do here today.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I guess I would like to restate it. I believe that we can reaffirm our commitment to the Second Amendment and the Constitution without saying that Prescott is a sanctuary city. I just do not think that is the best thing for our city. And I will tell you, I believe that SB 1487 is a reality, and it could really hurt our city if we lost revenue. And so, Mayor, I would like to again suggest that we table this and that we think about other ways that we can reconfirm our commitment to the Second Amendment without saying we are a sanctuary city.
So we have a motion to table and a second. Any other discussion? If not, please vote.
Passes 6-1.
All right. Let's move on to item 10B, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Tyler, we're going to do this. Give us just a minute.
Sure.
It looks like some folks are going to exit. So rather than try to talk over those guys, we'll let those folks leave the chambers.
See you, Ben. Welcome home.
They don't have to be resident.
Actually, use it in case instead of using sanctuary.
It'll cool off as all these bodies are out of here.
After the basement.
No, too extreme.
I can get it to you.
All right, if we can have it quiet in the chambers. Tyler, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tyler Goodman from the City Manager's Office. I'll make this brief. So far, there have been over 1,500 bills introduced down at the state. A good thing to note is that lawmakers have until February 21st to hear bills, to consider them in their chamber of origin. So you're going to see a lot of flurry in the committees this next couple weeks. Going through these, House Bill 2284, the Regional Park Appropriations Bill from Representative Campbell passed out of committee. It'll go to appropriations, then to rules, then to the floor, and over to the Senate if it continues on. I'm going to jump down. Short-term rentals, this bill we've been talking about for a couple of weeks. These are efforts in order to rein them in, to give cities more authority. This one has to deal with anything that's not a primary or secondary residence. Cities would have the ability to have more control over. And it says that they may not be rented for more than anything less than a 30-day period. It's not on an agenda yet, which isn't good news. There's also a couple other bills on short-term rentals that haven't seen an agenda yet. So we'll see how far this goes. Hopefully it does make it. Fire sprinklers in existing buildings. This one I talked about a couple weeks ago as well. There have been some amendments, but it's still a bad bill in terms of what it does for cities. It would not allow us to require the installation of fire sprinklers in certain types of buildings, restaurants, bars, nightclubs. It has occupancy limits, anything over 300 people, and those that serve alcohol. So that did pass out of committee, and it'll go on to Rules Committee. Oh, it did pass Rules Committee, and it'll go on to the floor. One that I want to spend just a little bit more time on is House Bill 1459, private attorney retention. This bill would require cities to receive approval from the Attorney General before entering into any contingency fee arrangements with private attorneys. This is kind of a backlash to what cities are doing, fighting opioid pharmaceutical companies. And so there's a lot of conflicts here. The Attorney General's office, as we've already discussed with 1487, could be considering that simultaneously with a city who wants to get into a contract with a private attorney. So this is a bad bill that would hurt us, definitely. It did pass out of its committee 4-3. It'll go on to rules, and then we'll see how far it goes. But we're keeping an eye on that. Jumping down, the local funding bill, Senate Bill 1160, the PSPRS cancer presumption. It did pass out of committee and appropriations as well. I've asked Barry to give us some more information, which I still haven't heard back, about the funding that's being discussed that's supposed to be tied to this. I've heard $20 million thrown around. I don't know if that's continual going forward. I find that hard to believe. But I'm trying to get some more information on what they're going to be funding at the state level in order to help this, because for all intents and purposes, it is going to pass. People have pretty much assured that already. So we'll see what actually happens with the funding element. Senate Bill 1280, PSPRS expenditure limitations. This would help us. It did pass out of its Senate committee, which is good news. It's making progress. And then another bill that would hurt us, House Bill 2348. This has to do with our residential rental tax. Ours is at 2.75%. This bill would cap any of those to 5%. Currently, we have to go to the voters to get this increased anyways. So, and what we're worried about is that these types of bills can be easily amended. That percentage could change. If this passed this year, next year they could come back and say it's capped at 3% and continue to mess with the financial side of it. And I won't spend too much time because we've discussed it at length already, but these are two bills that have to do with the Second Amendment, with what you could call red flag laws as well. There's several more, but these two are ones that we're following more closely. None of them have made it to any agenda yet, and they're not scheduled to be on any committee agenda so far.
So Tyler, I'd like to ask you about that, because what can we do, or what can our lobbyist, Barry Aarons, do to say that we would not support red flag laws? I mean, this is a way to really stop things from happening. So what could we do?
As a council, if you give us the direction, we'll certainly send it to Barry that if any of them make it to an agenda,
Okay.
which barring, except for 2093, I personally don't think any of them are going to make it to an agenda simply because they are Democratic bills, which typically don't get heard, and there's just no flavor to push those right now. If it does get on an agenda, he will sign in and even testify on our behalf.
So then, Mayor, I guess I would like to suggest that, and Matt, that we think about doing something like that about opposing red flag laws
Yeah,
as a council. That would be one way that we could make a statement.
at the direction of the
Okay,
council
okay.
at this point, generally. Okay. Or
That's all I have.
we can
Thank
bring
you.
it back for
Just bring it back, but I just,
discussion.
it's something we can do.
Yeah, that's an option.
would
you
really make
certainly
a
have
difference.
to utilize your lobbyists to defeat legislation you don't particularly.
Tyler,
Yes.
what about SB 1164 that has two Republican Senate co-authors?
Yeah, the severe threat order protection. That it's still not on an agenda, which means it's probably getting some pushback from the rest of the caucus. If it is on an agenda, we can have Barry be there on our behalf, and I'll keep you apprised if it is, because committees, the agendas are set for this week. It would have to be next week, and they're pushing against deadlines to get them out of their chamber.
I think those are the kind of bills that this council would want to know about right away if they were moving.
And I could certainly do that.
One quick question, Tyler, if I may. You can find out from Barry on SB 1280 who in their right mind would vote against the ability of not being able to use that towards your city expenditures. And that doesn't make
Right.
sense.
Right, I could find the breakdown for you, let you know who voted against it.
I'd like to know that, because what we're trying to do is pay it down, and why would they hold a community or a county hostage because they spent too much on their limited expenditures because they're doing the right thing? Doesn't make sense.
Well, it's the legislature.
Would that apply to charter cities?
I believe it would. I could double check on that, but I believe it would.
If you would.
Other-
There'd be 3 no votes and 2 that didn't, and for it to only pass 5 to 3 to 2, it seems like it'd be a slam dunk deal to support our law enforcement retirement and not hold the communities past their spending limiters.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's too logical, Councilman. Any other comments, questions from the council? Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 10C, please.
Approval of water service agreement application number WSA 20-001 by Alexandra Lazar, representing Ocean Blue Willow Creek LLC for commercial water supplies on APNs 106-20-97 and 106-20-498.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Leslie Grazer, Public Works Water Resource Admin. Let's see if everything's working. To get you started on this topic today, we're going to look at the map for where this is located. I think you mostly know where it is located, Willow Creek and Willow Lake Road intersection, roughly. With the new policy in place, it might be helpful to walk through what we're looking at here and how we're looking at it. So first, your policy states the City Council will vote on the proposed project and water use. The procedure that we went through for this is right here. So first, the applicant speaks to community development, and they completed that. Next, they attend a pre-application meeting, and within that pre-application meeting, the applicant gets a letter back from the city that asks for a demand analysis. Then we move to required applications, and so you can see what this looks like. Within their application, they must also file a demand analysis. If you follow this line here, excuse me, if you follow this line here, the demands have been determined from another Ocean Blue Express car wash in Prescott, and they have estimated that their average daily use is 15,800 gallons per day, which is then changed over to acre feet, 17.5. Excuse me, no, it actually was like 17.7, but we're in the tenths at that point. So this then went to the Water Issues Committee, and when it went to the Issues Committee, they also looked at the volume that was being requested and the location and the application in general. And we had a few questions come up, and the first one was asking about, do they recycle water? So after that meeting, we went to their website, and you can see that they make the most of every drop of their water. Our unique system recycles 90% of the water used in every car wash. So this is pretty typical. I think I made the comment that I assumed they did, which was not taken very well, and I apologize for that, but this is a modern car wash. I've been through this car wash. These types of car washes recycle water. We followed up with the applicant to make sure we didn't miss anything and to look into this some more. And they updated their website later that week and provided a little bit more information. It says a few sentences down, per wash, we use approximately 12 gallons of fresh water, less than a standard residential washing machine. Of this small amount of fresh water used, 4 gallons is lost to evaporation and carry out, and 8 returns to the city's sewer system. The other question that came up during this Water Issues Committee is, how is this being tracked? So there is no contract that you're voting on today. Your document just says that you are approving an application for a project and the water required for it. And that is a change. You've probably been accustomed to approving contracts. There is no contract related to this. And I'm happy to answer any further questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. Questions, comments from the council. Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Leslie. My main concern is about the recycling aspect. First, let me say I think car washes are a vital part of our community, because if a resident probably is washing his car in his driveway, there's probably a lot of wasted water. So I'm thrilled that they have the capacity to recycle water, to filter it, and not use our drinking water on their cars. But my concerns are, number one, did anyone look at the original car wash on Iron Springs? Did anyone look at their water bills to see what their current use is and apply it to this new one?
That's exactly what the engineer did for this application.
Okay.
Was they pulled the billing data from the Iron Springs car wash and then applied it to this new one. I talked to him a little bit, and he said, we did have a leak underground too, so please don't count that against us. So it might be a little bit lower, but in time we will see how that car wash behaves. Maybe they have more customers at that location than this one. We'll just have to see over time.
And then do we inspect these recycling apparatuses, the filters? Because I have heard, and I'm not saying that this might happen here, but I have heard that some car washes will be plumbed for it and then not exactly implement their recycling program.
There is been no inspections that I'm aware of. That might come through your building department or something of that matter if there is a problem, but I have not seen that the city goes out and inspects.
And this requirement, is it in our city ordinances and codes, the recycling of the car wash water?
As far as I understand, it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Blair.
I think it's a great opportunity. I use the one in Iron Springs all the time, and just the bottom line to it is 90% of everything they run through their system goes back to our treatment plant to be treated and put back into the aquifer. So there's very little loss. I mean, when I wash my car in my driveway, I can guarantee we have loss. So I'm glad a business has decided to open up in Prescott to bring commerce here on the north side of town. We always talk about traffic. This is one way to have it on the north side where we're not getting a bunch of traffic coming through town to go to a car wash. So I think it's a very positive thing for Prescott.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, and I agree completely. I actually use the same one on Iron Springs, and I look forward to getting one in my neighborhood in Prescott Lakes area, so I'm sure it's going to be very popular. A very efficient system. When you think about less than what we're using for a washing machine, right? And I'm with Councilman Blair. If I had to wash my car, I use a lot more water. So I'm very happy that this system is here, and I think it's probably a really state of the art.
Well, I use the one on Iron Springs, and I'm glad you're going to use the other one, so I don't have to wait in line.
You don't have to wait as long. There you go. I even have that monthly thing, so I can go through often.
Councilman Good.
Well, I think a highly efficient operation like this is valuable. And what I am hoping is that we can capture some of the commuters from Prescott Valley to Prescott and back that will stop and get a car wash so we can capture a little TPT revenue.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Anybody else on the council here? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. Approval of water service agreement application number WSA 20-001 by Alexander Lazar, representing Ocean Blue Willow Creek Road LLC for commercial water supplies on APNS 106-20-497 and 106-20-498. I don't think that's their phone number.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thanks for hanging with us, Ken. All right, let's move on to item 10D, please.
Adoption of PLN 19-020, a proposed rezoning of 600 and 621 East Rosser Street from its current single-family 35 designation to multifamily medium density.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, Mayor, members of the council. Tammy Dewitt, Community Planner. Here's a map of the property, a zoning map of the area. The property is currently zoned single-family 35, 35,000 minimum square foot dwelling size. It does span over on the other side of Rosser Road too. So it's a total of 1.91 acres. Under the current zoning, it could be split into 2 single-family residential lots. With a no maximum lot size, size of a house. It could be 2 stories, 35 maximum height. What the applicant is proposing, well, here's the show. It is vacant right now. We do have also over here, just for comparison, we do have Cloudstone development over here. It is an SF-18 platted under a planned area development. With the planned area development, you reduce the lot sizes and the setback requirements. So these usually see about a 10-foot building separation between, because they have 5-foot side setbacks. We do have a neighbor-oriented business zoning over here on the other side, which would allow for multifamily, just for comparison in the area. And then here we have the Cloudstone development. It is pretty much built out at this time. And here's an updated site plan. Here we go. Okay. That the applicant provided that kind of shows the building separation a little bit more of what they're proposing. See if I get this a little brighter. But they are proposing 20-foot building separation, 20 feet, rather than what you see on the other Cloudstone, 10 feet. It is a rezoning to a multifamily. The applicant could have come in and tried for an SF-18, similar to what's over in Cloudstone, but then he would have platted a separate residential lots, which was not his intent. He wanted to do this under one existing parcel and just have the 3 houses here that remain under one ownership. It's a little different model than we usually see, but the intent is for these to be rental houses. And so they'd have one access here, and then their each individual house with a garage. This property is impacted on the other side of Rosser Street with a floodplain. It's pretty much undevelopable, so that leaves only this area here to be developed. There have been other proposals before through PAC, but none of them have come to fruition because of the floodplain issues. And you can also see over here, this is also limited over here. Here are some renderings that the applicant did provide after the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, based on some concerns of what these were going to look like. They are just proposing single-family residential houses, the 3 here in the cluster. That way it's not impeding on any visual for the neighbors. No, it's not blocking anybody's view sheds. Then here's a close-up of what they were proposing. There was some question from the commission about adjacent house sizes. So we did look on the county's website to see what they're being evaluated at, what the improvements are. And they did range from 624 square feet sorry, thank you, 1,624 square feet, it's late in the day, to 2,266 square feet. The applicant is proposing 1,200 square foot house sizes. That's livable area, which is pretty typical for rentals, 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses for the area. These lot sizes also just range from 5,102 square feet to 11,305 square feet. If he was going to split this into two, they would just be 35,000. But if he did it under SF-18, he'd be allowed 4 lots there. But he's just proposing the 3 under one ownership. Like I said, the property is vacant at this time. This kind of shows the houses along the boundary here. And then some other pictures of the property, which are hard to see on this. So this also does show, we did get a letter of opposition yesterday from an adjacent property owner, from this resident right here. They're saying that they were just hearing about the proposal. On December 20th, we did send notices out to all the property owners within 300 feet, which is required by state statute. This shows the buffer map of all the property owners that were sent. We did feel that this was capturing most of the impacted neighbors, and that if need be, it would spread. At the commission meeting, we did have a couple of people attend because the property was also posted. And then we've only gotten the 1 letter of opposition that we got yesterday. And so the applicant is proposing a zoning map change to multifamily, just to allow for the 3 residences under 1 ownership. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm free to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Blair.
I love seeing this, be honest with you. Thinking outside the box a little bit. The multifamily kind of gives it a bad taste in the mouth to the neighborhood, because you're thinking all of a sudden we're going to get apartments next door to us. But in reality, an RA 35 lot on Rosser Street is probably not reality. And for it to be under 1 owner, we are suffering from a lack of rental housing. And to have 1 common driveway off that busy road that serves 3 residentials, I like seeing different stuff like this, because an old guy on this council that spent 4 years in the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's fresh to see something different that doesn't fit the typical mold. Such that Cloudstone was when it first came in, because it didn't fit the typical mold. So I will support this.
Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. I have a question about water meters. Is there 1 water meter proposed for these 3 homes?
At this time, per the water code, each house would have to have its own water meter unless the applicant applies with the Public Works Director to have 1 meter for the 3 houses. And per the water code, because it is under 1 ownership, that they could apply and it would qualify. It could possibly qualify for consideration.
So we don't know anything further on that topic?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to say I think this is a really nice infield project. We often try to encourage this to happen in our own ways, and here it's happening because the owner wants it to happen, and we like that. Thank you.
Councilman Good.
I understand the Planning and Zoning Commission was split on their vote for this. Can you comment on the concerns?
It was approved 4-1. I recommend approval 4-1. On page, Commissioner Roop explained that he voted against the motion to approve because the proposed multifamily zoning is not compatible with the surrounding single-family zoning, resulting in smaller rental units versus larger homes in the adjacent Cloudstone subdivision.
I do have general concerns about changing of zoning to a higher density, which also is a potential up zone, which makes the property potentially more valuable. And when a property owner buys a piece of property knowing what the zoning is, they should be prepared to build or develop based upon that zoning. And when we start making changes to zoning that potentially make a property more valuable and more buildable, then we kind of create a precedent, especially in a location that's generally zoned for single-family homes on bigger lots. Now, I understand the planned area development makes exceptions to that based upon the total plan. But we constantly are running into these zoning changes that if we make a land use change, then we can't revert to a lower or a less dense area, because that would be a violation of 207, I believe, correct?
Prop 207 is the diminution of value, and
Right.
rezonings are legislation that would fall into that particular category. Well,
So-
can I just, looking at the recommended motion, I remember the commission spent a lot of time tying this particular project to the site plan. So I think when you make your motion, we just have to be careful that we add that.
Yes.
So there will be substantial compliance to the site plan presented. And that kind of alleviated a lot of the concerns, because what will go in there are 3 residential houses. So it doesn't open it up to additional units.
Yeah, that's my concern. I've heard other developers and builders with intentions to do certain things, and then after the zoning has been changed, all of a sudden the intentions change, and we get a different building that wasn't what was expected. So we would have protection here?
You do have the authority to make it subject to substantial compliance with the site plan presented. And I think that was the intent of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And that was also part of the recommendation from the planning and zoning, that it was in conformance with the site plan. That way, if something happened and the property sold and somebody wanted to do something else, it would have to come back through the public hearing process to amend the site plan.
And or they're stuck with the site plan as it exists and they can build it.
It does give us some protection. Thank you.
Substantial compliance to the site plan as presented. Okay. Councilman Blair?
I want to go one step further. I would like to recommend with that site plan that those homes are individually metered. I think it's important to have them individually metered so the owner knows what each one of those facilities is using, opposed to having it a block meter. I don't know whether the owner's going to pay for the water bill, but certainly if I were one that wanted to rent it, I would want to know what my house was producing rather than what the other 2 were producing together. So I would suggest that they be metered individually like any residential house.
I'd support that suggestion strongly.
And I'll let the applicant speak to that, but one of my recollection is one of the reasons we kind of proceeded this way was because of some issues with the utilities, running utilities up kind of one pipe. Now, whether or not that changes, whether we can do individual billing and metering, I don't know, and let's have that conversation. But I think it should be okay.
And my understanding is that it would be one main coming off, one line coming up and then splitting it, and each home could have its own meter.
It needs to be tied to development agreement or to the site plan. I would recommend that anyway.
Matt, how do you suggest we handle that?
Let's hear from the applicant, see
Okay.
what his thought process was there.
Afternoon, Keith Hughes. So my initial goal with this project was, it's a very difficult build and it's hard to get anything on it. So what my goal was to build 3 individual single-family homes. Actually, metered individually is fine with me. That makes it easier for me in billing reasons. Most landlords tend to want 1 meter and then they pay for the utilities themselves. So this way it actually helps me out. So in an answer to your question, I'm fine with that. Building these exact units or as close as I possibly can is what my goal is. I know people can sell all 3 if they want to, but this project is my project. I'm keeping this project for as long as I live, so that could be tomorrow, who knows. But I'm going to build this out the way it is. The don't see any issues with it. It's a very difficult build, so I felt this was the best usage of the property. And also with the zoning that's there, obviously I could only put 2 units on it, so the multifamily zoning helps me in location and orientation, because the PAD SF-18, which is next door to me, would allow me to put 4 units on this, possibly, and those 4 units could be 300 square foot, 400 square foot, 1,000 square foot, whatever. So these are all nice, single-family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garages. They're nice homes.
Very good. Can we just note that on the site plan regarding the individual water meters? That way when we reference the site plan, would that work?
Or be in the
We'd
motion.
probably throw it in the motion as well. I'm kind of
Okay.
taking notes here. I'll help you along as
Okay.
we go.
Yep. Well, very good. Thanks for answering that question.
Sure, thank you.
Councilman Sishka.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say that we have a group of homes down below my place where I live up in Forest Highlands. And one of the things that I really like about them is that they are a single owner, and that single owner makes sure that they're kept attractive. All of the homes that are kept very attractive, and it's really a nice area. And so it's great to have at the entrance to Forest Highlands. So I think that if you can keep up these homes like they've kept them up under Forest Highlands, I think that that'll be a boon for the community.
Anything else from the council? Public comment?
Yes, I have 2 cards. The first one is from, 3. Deborah Althouse.
And if you'd like to speak, even if you haven't filled out a card, you can speak and then fill out the card afterward.
Council members, Mayor, I appreciate what you do for our city, and I am opposed to this, and that's why I'm here. I've lived in Cloudstone since I was the original owner, first person to move into the development. And I've known that that lot or that acreage has been available for years, 13 years now. And I knew eventually people would build there. But I want, and we all would like to see ownership, home ownership, not rentals. It's going to devalue our property that we work so hard to have the value go up. And if you bring in rentals, it's going to go down. And we have so many apartments in this city, new apartments, Willow Lake Road or Willow Creek Road. I think it's on Miller Valley, brand new apartments going up. I don't see a reason that we need to bring in multifamily homes and 3 on one lot, a shared road. I just don't think it's the right thing to do, and it would devalue what we have in our neighborhood. Now, as I said, I'm happy to see private ownership go in there, but I am not in agreement for this at all. So I ask that you consider this in your own neighborhoods if you would like to see this. And I understand, Councilman Siska, you have that in your neighborhood and it works for you, but there are no rentals in our whole area. Blooming Hills, Cliff Rose. If they're private owned, they could be ownerships but be renters at the same time. That's a different situation. But if you're building a development that is specifically for renters, that is not what, bless you, that is not what we want to see. So I ask that you reconsider approving this and keeping it at the original zoning for residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Althouse.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name's Brian Allshouse. I've lived there for 17 years. Obviously, that was my wife that just spoke. And our main concern is the fact that it's rental property. And by keep changing the zoning all the time to fit whatever developer wants to put in there, I think we've gone through this before. There was a church that the other end that they wanted to rezone to build a higher steeple. But anyways, our main concern is the traffic flow, safety issues, and the noise, and obviously the decrease in value of our property. I personally do not know anybody that benefits in increase in their property value or it staying the same when they put in a rental development next to their home. And as my wife said, there are plenty of rental homes. The main issues with safety, with traffic, they have to exit, go east on Rosser. And my concern is they're going to use Cloudstone and Rosser to make a U-turn to head west. Now, the Prescott City Schools already use Rosser and Cloudstone as a bus stop to drop off and pick up children. And I guess those are kind of our concerns. And I think there's, you know, to keep changing the zoning, there's a lot of empty lots across from us. And that could be changed to rental apartments if we keep changing the zoning every time a developer comes in and wants to put something in. I would like to see our community stay the way it is, and I would appreciate your support in maintaining the consistency of our neighborhood in the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaine Temple.
Hello. I moved into Cloudstone area about 5 years ago, and my husband and I came, and when we came to Prescott, we looked for an area that was single family owned. And we looked all throughout Bloomingdale and Cloudstone, and we found this, and we really liked it. I am not opposed to rentals, but I am opposed to rentals in an area that was zoned for single families, because I bought with that intention. Frankly, if you get a bunch of little kids over there, they're not going to like our neighborhood anyway, because we're all retirees. But it's not the fact that children make noise, and it's not the fact that there may be multiple types of people, related or unrelated, in these houses, but it's the fact that I chose that property based on it being ownership owned. There's a huge, I have in my life lived in rentals, and I've lived in rentals that were shared by a lot of young people that were houses, and you just do not have the same value for your property. Now you have one owner, but I really don't think, unless that doesn't ever seem to matter with rentals. Either you get a good renter or you get renters that don't give a hoot, all right? And I'm afraid of the renters that don't give a hoot. And I didn't expect to have, like the NOB, I don't want that piece of property turned into rentals, because this one seemed to work out well for 3 people or 3 houses. So I'm opposed to this. And I'm opposed to it because I came into Prescott and I had an idea of what I wanted to buy. I didn't want to buy a rental. I wanted to buy a home. And I wanted the people around me to be homeowners, just like me. And I did buy that house. And I'm going to stay here. And I do not want this property rezoned. So I would respectfully hope that you would reject this. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Ken, you can fill out a comment card afterwards. We kind of know who you are, but.
Good afternoon, Council. My name's Ken Mabarak. I'm on the Planning Commission, and in fact, we voted on this very project. A little bit of background. One of the problems with this particular site is that on Rosser, you have an island. So this property will only have right in and right out. The lady who was talking, she's worried that they'll use her driveway over at Cloudstone to turn around. That might happen. One of the reasons we looked at this, and there was a lot of deliberation over it. We got Matt up to the microphone 4 or 5 times to verify those things that Phil just mentioned about people promise things and then things change later on. And we kind of checked with Matt on a couple of those things. But the real key thing here is I think we're dealing with some terms that are polarizing some of the folks. And Tammy, you know some of the details about why this went to a PAD zoning. We only wanted one driveway to this property. If you put 3 or 4 houses here, now you've really complicated Rosser Road. This way, with the way if you can put that up there, there's only one entry into this whole area, which means that somebody's got to own that. So I don't know how it would have worked with 3 or 4 single-family houses like the folks are asking for. These really are very close to single-family. It's just one common ownership. So I perceive this, I don't want to speak for my fellow commissioners, as really a single-family thing. But the zoning issue had to take place because of the way our codes are written, that you couldn't have three properties on this parcel without going to the multifamily zoning. So I don't look at this as a multifamily. I've been in multifamily most of my life, except for the recent period. And this is not, in my opinion, multifamily. This is single family. I know there was conversation at our meeting, Matt or Tammy, you might be able to recall that better than I, about water meters. And I think we talked about having 1 meter, did we not?
I don't recall.
And not that that would make a
about having the
difference.
one line, and I don't
Right.
I don't know if we got to the point where that line has 3
Splitting off from,
split-offs
okay,
with
so,
them.
but it was one line coming in.
Right.
So,
And I think that's one of the reasons they had to attempt the multifamily zoning.
yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. This wasn't done willy-nilly. There was a lot of consideration. There is a wash next to it, and the property across the street's a wash. So there's not anything else that's going to probably happen here. And I know I didn't look at this as multifamily as much as I did, because the lots in Cloudstone, you could probably get 4 or 5 of them in this parcel, based on the lot size. So it's not as big an impact as the definitions may sound. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you,
Ken,
Mr.
could I ask-
Mayor.
Mayor, could I ask Ken a question? Cloudstone actually looks over
Correct.
this lot,
I'm going
right?
to tell you it's probably 40, 50 feet above.
Exactly.
Okay,
It's a guess.
thanks. I was just,
It does look over it.
okay.
Thank you, Ken. You're a
Thank
pretty
you.
good dancer, too.
Thank you.
Councilmember Roosing.
I'd just like to make a few comments. Thank you. It sounds like we're trying to put a round peg in a square hole. I do not support this rezoning, number one, because it's non-conforming, and I agree with Mr. Root from Planning and Zoning. And I've listened to the opposition from our homeowners. And one of the things that makes Prescott special and such a wonderful place to live is our wonderful neighborhoods and our homeowners. And we need to support our homeowners and our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Any other public comment or council?
No further public comment.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I think I took notes. I would like to make one other comment, and that is that we need affordable housing in our community. We have people that cannot qualify to buy houses, and so I appreciate that we have single-family homes that are available. I live in Prescott Lakes. I know several of our homes, although they're single-family, they are rented out by families that are very good families. So I'd like to make a motion, Mayor, to move to approve PLN 19-020, the rezoning of 600 and 621 East Rosser Street from single-family 35 SF-35 to multifamily medium density MF-M, limited to 3 single-family or to site plan presented and metered individually.
Second.
The legal words of art would be developed in substantial compliance with the site plan presented, and utilities being individually metered. That's kind of what I've got.
Sarah, you got that?
I got it.
You want to just read it, and then if you think I got it
Sure,
right, you
please do.
just.
I just said that's
Awesome.
it.
So it's the move to approve PLN 19-020, the rezoning of 600 and 621 East Rosser Street from single-family 35 to multifamily density, subject to the property being developed in substantial compliance with the site plan presented and requiring the utilities to be individually metered.
Perfect.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we vote, Councilwoman Scholl, do you have a comment?
Thanks, Mayor. I just kind of wanted to echo a little bit of what Mayor Pro Tem was saying. I think the term affordable housing comes with a lot of negative connotations. But the reality is housing in Prescott is very expensive, and there are professionals in our community that cannot afford to buy a home. So just saying, we need affordable housing, I think comes across negatively, but we need housing for families, for our teachers, for our own firefighters, our own police officers. I live in a community that's a lot of mix of homeowners and rentals, and for the most part, it's pretty peaceful. And I have a feeling that the developer will keep up the homes pretty well. And I think that this is an opportunity and, like Councilman Blair said, kind of a unique solution and an infill project. So I think it's all in all, a benefit to our community.
It's to his benefit to keep him looking nice. And far as I'm concerned, with Dr. Ascari doing what he's doing and bringing in specialists from all over in Embry-Riddle, those are prime places for professionals that come in and transit, move out, that will keep them looking nice, I think.
All right, any other comments? If not, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 5-2.
All right, let's move on to item 10E, please.
Approval of SIG 19-006, a comprehensive sign plan for the Burmester 120 West Gurley Street, APN 115-15-115.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. So before you is a comprehensive plan for the Burmester building at 120 West Gurley Street. The proposal includes 4 wall signs for the building for a total of 199.85 square feet. Under our existing zoning, they would only be allowed 50 square feet of signage. So this is going to make it where people supposedly know more where the building is. Here's a picture of the front. On the awning, there's going to be a 42 square foot backlit sign, which matches what was approved for Bashford Courts, adjacent next door. They wanted to mimic the sign and the size, the style, and the lighting, so they're going to look very, very similar with the different verbiage to designate the 2 buildings. The other 2 signs, so on one of them on the back of the building. So this one will be 33.3 square feet. This one on the east side of the building will be 33.3 square feet. And the other one that was added at the meeting, because it's there, is on the back over the back door. This is going to be considered an entrance. They're redoing the building, and this will be now an entrance from the back, similar to what we see next door at Bashford Courts. And this one is 11.25 square feet. This was heard by the Historic Preservation Commission, and they unanimously approved the application. And then our Planning and Zoning Commission also unanimously approved this application with the 4 signs. And that concludes my presentation. I'm free to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thanks for hanging with us here. Questions, comments from the council? Councilwoman Scholl.
Is it Burmester or Burmeister?
I've always pronounced it Burmeister.
Does anyone know?
It's kind of a Prescott thing.
Okay, all right.
Burmester. Burmester. I'm being corrected, Burmester.
Burmester.
Phonetically, it's Burmester.
Okay.
Other.
And that's per Elizabeth Ruffner.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
That is the authority. Thank you. Other questions, comments from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve SIG 19-006, a comprehensive sign plan for the Burmeister.
Second.
Did I hear a second? Second. Motion and second. Please vote.
You need to vote. Passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you. Our quote today comes from Abraham Lincoln. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves, and under the rule of a just God cannot long retain it. This meeting is adjourned.